me ask you a regulation.
You don't want to
Would you consider that?
Maybe.
Can I ask you a regulation question? You made your whole career in the world of healthcare.
Yes.
Yeah.
Obamacare, good or bad, in the context of trying to remove regulations that you're talking about?
Terrible.
Terrible.
Yeah, because they're focusing on all the wrong things. I'm talking Obamacare.
Is that what
This
you were
is it.
expecting?
Joe, do you want...
Sort of midway. I didn't know where he'd come down completely.
It's becoming, look, this...
Terrible is a pretty good word.
Andrew, here's what we've got. This is a Titanic. It's just at the iceberg, and everyone's looking at the tip. Healthcare.gov. It's not going to be solved by the end of the month. Trust me, okay? We got a long way to go, but that's only the part of the problem. We're just starting to reveal it. If you don't get it fixed now, it's going to get much, much worse. Look at this fiasco we have right now. We're trying to take people's insurance plans away now, give them back. The governor Dayton
But
of Minnesota.
are you in the camp of fixing it or repealing it?
You're not going to repeal it. It's not going to be repealed because by 2017, this thing is going to be locked in. No one's going to repeal it. The president is never
take
going
what you have and fix it.
We've got to fix it. But the president better move now. Approval ratings, I just saw the latest, are down at 42%. 57% people against this. You better do something. You better act
how do you
now.
Fix it? I mean, his idea of
I've got lots of ways to fix it.
Just give them back their policies that we were taking away.
No.
That seems like a pretty tough fix to get through because the insurance commissioners would have to sign off. The insurance companies have to basically blow up what they've done for the last 3 years. How do you fix it?
My little office of 4 people in our foundation lost their health care. And they can keep it, 50% increase. Or they can go on the exchange, have to change all their doctors. That's the next big one that's coming. When people start losing their doctors because of the bronze plans, they're going to be very upset.
And driving past 3 hospitals on the way to the one that will offer you treatment.
Yeah,
60 miles down the road.
So you're going to get a lot of upset people if you don't act quickly. He acted too late on the insurance plans. And that's
so what can he do to act quickly? I mean, when you say act quickly to do what? I don't know how to undo some of the big problems that you just laid out.
You might even have to have, first of all, the bar is way too high. No Medtronic plan would qualify. Medtronic has great plans, but they wouldn't qualify under this because they're very high deductible plans, and you get paid, you get a reduction for taking care of your health. Under the current law, you don't get any reduction.
What if you get pregnant? Are you covered for that? and I look at you, what about substance abuse? You know that guy in Toronto, right? That can happen to anyone. I look at you and think you better have some substance abuse treatment options in your plan.
So here's what's going to happen.
Because that's what I want you to have. Right. Because I say you have to.
Yeah. And so you've priced, you're an insurance company, you've priced your plan based on the fact you're going to have 38% of the people are going to be under the age of 34. Not going to happen. If you were 26 years old, just went off your parents' plan, very healthy, what would you do? You'd pay the $100 penalty. You're working at Starbucks, or you're working at
that penalty is scheduled to go up.
I understand, but you're going to postpone that as long as you can, hoping something will come, I think. So I'm very worried about adverse selection, and that's going to cause a repricing next year.
Be really expensive.
So you better move ahead of some of those things.
How do you move ahead of it?
Well, I think you have to go back and get a fix and take down some of these so-called minimum conditions, which are up here. And I think until you give people an incentive for living healthy lives. Right now, Becky, we're going to have a huge snowplow effect of costs. And it will not happen in this president's term. It'll happen in the next president's term. About 2018, 2020, you're going to have huge, I think, $1 to $2 trillion.
Do you have to undo the idea, the very basic premise of pre-existing conditions? That's expensive.
No, I want to keep that.
Okay, so you cover people with pre-existing conditions. That's expensive. If you point to what Joe talked about with maternity, that's not a matter of taking care of yourself. That's just a certain population is going to have that. And if you want that to be affordable...
Let me select that. If I want maternity care, I can select it.
But if you want maternity care, then it's going to be very, very expensive.
I think you have to lower the bar. I think it's too high, and I think you have to permit, the law doesn't permit incentives for living healthy lives. Right now, the big cost issue driver, let's be honest, is obesity, body mass index. We don't want to talk about it. It's politically incorrect. That is the big driver. And we've got to move on that to incentivize people for living healthy lives or improving their health.
Does that mean offering incentives that if you can pass certain tests, you get a deduction? Or does that mean if your BMI is above a certain level, your body mass index is above a certain level, you have to pay more? Because
no, I would do it starting the bar here. You get reductions every time your BMI is low, or you reduce it 10%. Maybe your BMI is at 36, you reduce it to 34. Hey, you get a reduction. I think we have to do that because we have an increasingly unhealthy population in this country, and that's going to cost more. And I think it's the first time in history you've asked the healthy young to pay for the unhealthy old. Why should our young people come along and pay for me?
We've always been doing that in some form or another. Can I ask you a related but semi-unrelated question? It goes to Medtronic and goes to sort of overall healthcare costs, which Obamacare is not necessarily helping bring down. but there was an issue on the table in Washington about taxes on products made by companies like Medtronic and medical devices, and whether the margins, if you will, the profits of companies like yours are too high, and that ultimately one of the things that has to happen is the costs of those types of products has to come down.
Profits are too
well, let's have a little competition.
Your profits were too high.
I'm making the argument that was going on in Washington. I'm not making it myself.
I'm a pro-competition guy. The Medtronic and all the medical device people refuse to pay at the altar and pay subsidies to get this bill through, like people did in the health plans and pharma, okay? And that's why they get hit with this tax. This is a tax on revenue.
You think this is a lobbying game?
Yes.
This was that your team sat out of the game.
I know how anxious, how angry Max Baucus and Rahm Emanuel were at the device companies. So they punished them. But you know what? You know who's really getting hurt on this? Medtronic gets hurt, sure, because they have a huge revenue base. Think about all the startup companies that have no profits, and they're getting hit with a tax with zero profits. So it's not a tax on profits, it's a tax on revenue. I call it a tax on innovation.
If it's not a monopoly, how do profits get
There's no
too
monopoly.
But how do you even use that term with a straight face? Profits are too high if there's a competitive marketplace. I don't think
it is competitive.
It does not compute.
There's two issues. One is there really a competitive marketplace? That's one question.
Well, then,
and then there's a second question, which is the fact that the government and our taxes are paying for a lot of these products. And if you're 90 years old, should you be getting a titanium hip when you could be getting a much cheaper one? That's right. Isn't that part of what's going on here?
Exactly. But, you know.
But also Medtronic is on the other side pushing to say you should be able to get that titanium hip. So
But we can't.
But it is a competitive marketplace. I can tell you. Go ask people at St. Jude or Medtronic whether they compete on price for pacemakers. You'll find it's highly competitive for titanium for hips. But should you have a choice? Should you go with what your doctor says, Andrew, this is the best hip for you or for your mother?
And we're in a political environment where it's not absurd to say that the government could consider. They've done windfall profits in other industries before. They can do it.
My doctor hopefully will always tell me to get the most expensive, greatest hip that ever exists. But that may not be the right thing in the sort of larger policy perspective, right?
Okay, right. So, Andrew, I want you to have a fiscal incentive to do the right thing. I want you to have some responsibility. Every Medtronic plan is based on that. Medtronic has no health plans that don't have an incentive. So you have a choice, okay? And you could pay less or pay more. And you can get...
You're going to have to pay for the hip if you want the top of the line.
By the way, I think the hospitals are moving the right way. They're moving aggressively to bring down costs. I'm on the board of Mayo Clinic. Been associated with a number of other hospitals. They are moving very aggressively to reduce costs. But as long as you're just treating with disease and you're not treating with health, they're trying to shift from disease to health. The number one thing we have to do is get rid of fee-for-service. And we've got to move to pay for value. Pay for keeping healthy. I say, I'll pay you a lot of money. I don't want heart surgery. I'll pay you a lot of money not to have heart surgery. I'll pay you a lot of money not to have spine surgery. And I think right now there's no incentive for that. And that's what we've got to move to. We've got to get going there. But right now, this train wreck that's coming down the tracks, to mix my metaphors with the Titanic, is you better see what's coming, the cliff that's ahead. Because if you don't, you got big problems.
All right, we're going to
Sorry to be so outspoken.
No, this is great because you're getting to real solutions, and that is incredibly helpful.
Right.
Fortunately, Bill is with us for the rest of the program. Our guest host is former Medtronic CEO Bill George. Steve, we'll see you back a little bit later, too.
Gator.